Well, this is a call to order of the first ad hoc calendar committee meeting. Um, Today's date is May 23rd, and the time is 5:32 p.m. In attendance, we have committee members Michael Macaro, Erica Castillo, myself, Joseph Lombard, and board member Joseph Sokolovic, as well as staff member Michael Testati. I'd like to ask before we even get started if we could have a motion to move the third item of planning the schedule up to the first one, so we can pick these days, get them done out of the way. Motion for that?
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? No. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get that out of the way. As you may recall, the charge was to take a look at the calendar as it exists now and to kind of evaluate and assess it and see if there's needs for suggestions to go to the full board for any changes for the future. And if not, or at least for setting down parameters and guidelines for how changes could occur if requests were brought to the board's attention, either to us or future boards. So the ask was to get this done before the school year starts. So at most, if we're successful, we would meet through July, August. So we meet a few more times. It shouldn't take much more than that, hopefully. So obviously we've got May, so we need June, July. Oh, and I'm sorry, not the school year starts, before the next calendar is set, and that's done in January, correct? January, I apologize. So June, July, August, September, October, November. So we have the potential for meeting 6 to 7 more times. Doesn't mean we're going to have to, but we can at least plan out those meetings, okay? So one of the things we found, as you know, when we were talking together, it was difficult finding a day that there weren't other committees meeting on or that worked for the superintendent's schedule as well. So I'm thinking maybe sticking with the same before a regular board meeting would work. Anyone have other comments on that, or?
Once a month?
Once a month, yeah.
Sure.
Once a month. Now, when is the last, for the summer, the board meetings? When do they go? We have, June. I don't even know whether June, July, there really aren't going to be
tell you
meetings.
right now what,
So we could just do the Monday.
so currently, where's the schedule?
I should add that up.
Okay, here we go. So the last scheduled Board of Ed meeting, June 6th, Monday, June 6th, and then they resume again on Monday, August 29th.
So we could really schedule our own for June and July and not base it on the board meeting, because there is none.
Correct.
All right. All right, so open to suggestions on when we meet, since it seems to be more wide open, the opportunity. I would say to the 20th. We could meet again on June 20th. Monday, June 20th. Does anyone have any conflict with that? If we stick with the Monday schedule?
That's on Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday, I believe. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It
The
is.
schools are closed, but I mean, if you
Yeah, we don't
want
wanna
to, it's up
put
to you if
people
you
in.
want to have a meeting.
No, because I think, the other people are off. So,
I'm fine with, is Juneteenth the 19th or the 20th?
19th.
it's recognized on the 20th.
Okay. I'm okay with meeting that 20th.
Okay. Would that be a problem with staff here?
I'm fine.
No, well, not a problem.
All right, so we'll leave it there, so the 20th, and then we'll go again a month out.
You want to meet here on that date?
I don't
since
think we
there's no-
have.
Or you want to go to Central, or you want to do it online?
I think we could meet in person.
Okay,
Yeah.
at Central?
Yeah, Central,
Okay,
yeah.
I can open the building, it's not a problem.
Yeah, we met here because the board meeting was happening afterward. And then just pushing it out one more month after that brings us to the 18th of July. You're not here, right?
I'll be on
You're on
vacation.
vacation. When are you back?
Um, let me take a look.
How about the 25th? You back then?
25th, I can definitely meet on the 25th of July.
How's July 25th?
Actually, July 25th, no, I have something, you want to do it on the,
Different day?
want to do it the week, the Monday before, the 11th,
Could do that.
Monday, July 11th?
Yep, looks good to me.
Okay.
Okay, that's good,
Okay, so we have June 20th. It's all right?
but I'll be here.
Okay, same time, 5:30?
Yeah.
All right,
That's good.
and then July 11th. And then
Want to
so
do
they
August
they resume again in August, right, the board meetings?
the 29th.
Oh,
If
29th,
you wanted to do one August 8th, that would work,
August 8th.
or the 15th, actually.
Um, we were on July 18th, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. August 8th, August 15th?
I know you
Oh.
are. 15th is good,
All right, 15th.
and then we
Yep.
can get it.
Let me go to the schedule of the board meetings. So we got June 20th. Yeah, we'll send them out. So June 20th, July 18th, oh, that's loud.
Oh, July 11th.
Sorry, July 11th, August 15th,
And then we can do September 12th.
and that'll be back here again.
Yep.
So those other three meetings will be in central, and then they'll come back to here again. So September 12th,
October 11th,
October 11th.
November 14th, and December 12th. And that should get us.
That's good. And I mean,
It may end
we
soon.
may not need it, right? This may be something that if things go smoothly, if they go smoothly, we're in a lot of agreement on things, we may not need all these meetings. But we'll get those dates out. All right, so thank you. So that's that. All right, so can this be turned down a little bit? It's a little loud. Oh, okay, all right. So we have here the calendars for the calendar for next year for the school calendar. And after you take a look at it, if anyone has any questions about what the different designations are, what they mean, what they stand for, you can see where it's ready to go. It's already been noted that Eid al-Fitr is actually going to be April 21st. It's not May 2nd. So just to make a note of that. And then also is the calendar for all the rest of the personnel, the staff of the district. That's the Bridgeport Public Schools calendar. That's the city. It's this one here. Yep. And then, yes, the other one, the one in red is the city's calendar, which basically mirrors it, except for one thing. There was an agreement that school personnel would substitute the day before Thanksgiving for Veterans Day.
Right.
So that's why you see in both cases, there's 13 holidays. But the city gets Veterans Day off, but instead the school's getting the day before Thanksgiving off. All right. So, something to keep in mind is any suggestions to the full board for possible changes to the calendar in the future has to take into consideration the rest of the school personnel, aside from teachers and certain administrators. If they're not here, that's a problem. So
What you're saying is that we really don't have any control at all over it.
oh, turn your mic on.
What you're saying is, we don't have any say with regard to the city's calendar and the Bridgeport Public School holiday calendar, because it's this calendar here, because it's union generated or whatever you want to call it.
Well, the teachers' union and the administrators' union do not say anything in regards to the calendar. The only thing in the administrators' union, the school administrators, is they have winter break, April break, and 3 weeks in the summer. That's
Okay.
their, for a 12-month admin. So that's why you have the December break,
Yeah,
the April break, and then 3 weeks in the summer.
okay,
Now, we are in the process of negotiating a new contract for this coming summer with NAGE. And in their contract, what I was told is whether it's president, governor, or mayor, if any of them acknowledge a holiday, then it's a holiday. That language could be negotiated that all three would have to, in order for it to be observed.
So currently, if any one of them.
Any one of the three calls it a holiday, because right now, technically, Juneteenth has become a federal holiday. It's not a state holiday. So, but because it's federal, we abide by it because of the non-certified unions who would not technically have to report to work, and that includes custodians, it includes, school security, clerical staff. So we're hoping that we shouldn't have to get to that late in the summer. But this year it just happened, we had a number of occurrences with ice storm potentials and everything else. So anything that can push up the June last day of school, where then we build in 5 days before for possible weather, Juneteenth should not even be impacted on most years.
Scott?
Yes. You mentioned age contracts and other support personnel contracts having these days, holidays. What happens when the holiday is encompassed in a week's vacation?
Nothing.
Nothing. So, for instance, if they're scheduled for a Good Friday off and spring break encompasses
Which
Good
happens.
Friday, so they don't get an extra day's pay, they just
That's when,
considered you had the holiday off.
correct. That happens quite a bit depending on when Good Friday falls.
Because I see a lot of districts do the week before we do, and it encompasses Good Friday.
Right, it really depends on the region, how close the surrounding areas, but it can be looked at. We try to mirror CES as much as possible, again, just because of the fact that many of our staff members, our teachers, do have children that go to neighboring school districts, and we don't want conflicts with childcare and then large absenteeism.
Ms. Castillo, I can't tell whether or not you're putting your hand up or not, so if you do want to interject something, feel free. Okay?
Yeah, for sure. I don't have anything at this time, but thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things that came up with this calendar was giving the day after New Year's off, which isn't necessarily something that has to happen.
Well, no, this year, not realizing we could have encompassed that on the Friday. It's not necessary to do the Monday, so that was a one-day error but that's, lesson learned on that one.
Right, so that was an example where it could be,
That would have bumped it up a day to June 12th. A Monday would have been the last day of school, which in that case, I would have tried to find another day, because you never want to carry over to the Monday if you don't have to. Anticipating there will be weather, but God forbid you had a mild winter and no cancellations. Monday end day kind of throws things off.
and the other thing about the example with Good Friday is that the spring break or whatever it's called, depending upon when Easter is, it still may not encompass Good Friday.
Correct.
Because if Easter's really early.
Sometimes it's in March, right?
Right, right.
No,
Good.
The total days should be 180 or 180?
We always build in a day more, 181. Technically, it's
81.
180. We do
Okay.
that because of if a child misses 18 days, they're not considered chronically absent until
Okay,
they're 180, they're chronically absent.
I
So
see, I see.
everybody kind of, to be honest with you, gives you that extra day.
That makes sense, I think.
Joe, you have some?
yeah, I was just gonna make a comment with Easter, no matter where it falls, Good Friday is always gonna be the Friday before Easter, so it can always encompass the week before. Because the districts that have a week differ from us, they go back to school the Monday after Easter.
No, but couldn't the week that we give off not include that week at all? Or would it always include the Easter week?
It would be touch. I mean, there's years where you get, I don't know when Easter is and.
Yeah, for example, my wife teaches at Stanford. They had their holiday the week before we had ours. They went back to work the Monday after Easter. They still had Easter off to celebrate the Easter holiday. But then they went back the very next day.
Yeah, we would always do that. We never go back.
But,
We never
the way-
celebrate Easter. Like next,
Right, but the way-
in 2024, it'll be Easter Sunday, March 31st. So we would go April 1st to work. But you wouldn't want to have the break the last week in March.
Right, I think that's what I'm saying, is the break wouldn't be that anyway in that case.
Mr. Lombard?
Yeah.
Mr. Benahan has his hand up.
No, Mr. Benahan has joined the meeting, and he has his hand up. Albert?
Thank you. I have a question, and I was in a meeting, a few minutes back. Thank you, Michael, very politely. I have a question for you, Mr. Study. I know this is the new committee, everybody, but my question is, why we do this committee? When we talking about all these holidays that we know, we have to provide an agenda, a book, we can see the holidays from 2023, 24, and 2025. What is the the purpose, Mr. Testani? You can answer me this question. To have this committee talk about holidays, just because we did the situation about of our community Muslim, now we need to have a committee talking about all the holidays. Because I'm I'd like to know more details because Karen asked me this question.
To be honest with you, I don't know why we're convening a committee right now.
Well, I believe what Chairman Weldon mentioned, what he's looking for is so that in the future, if any future requests come to the board to assess assess the calendar to see if there's need for additions or changes to either the holiday schedule, or while we're at it, looking at the vacation schedule at the same time, there could be some type of parameters or guidelines that either this board or future boards have to use when making those decisions going forward. It was, yes, Mr. Benahan, it was brought to the forefront by our latest decision to add the Muslim holiday, and it came up as an opportunity to say, well, let's look for going forward for how our calendar is laid out, and is there room for adjustments or not? And that's why I said this committee could be only meeting a few times if we come to the conclusion that everything's status quo is just fine, or at the same time, even if it is just fine right now, if we want to identify some possibly data-driven or just in general parameters that could be used in making decisions to change the calendar going forward.
I mean,
So another word, Mr. Lombard, is like in any person come from another country or another religion, ask for additional holiday in the calendar. So another word, we can be ready.
Basically, yes, that we could be ready and that we could have some type of objective measure that we use when we do that. And also we could know what flexibility exists and where it exists and where it may not exist. As we pointed out, there are certain holidays that we just have to have, and then there may be others that we could move. So that's kind of what that discussion is. Mr. Testani, you were...
I was just gonna say, I mean, there's always been a practice, but there's not necessarily a reason why we have to have election day off. I know they go at our schools in the gymnasium, but, there's primaries where we don't have the day off and we just relocate PE classes either outdoors or somewhere else. But I just want everyone to understand that, like this year, I'm already getting complaints. I mean, thank God things changed from the weekend. But as it gets warmer, there are several buildings without air conditioning. And, we're going to do the last, as much as we can, half days, but it's still hot on a half day. And there are children with severe asthma and other issues that parents have already brought up and unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to prevent. And the snow days, it was stressed again, even out of the legislative session. There are no remote days for weather. It did not pass. It wasn't even considered. So we have to make up the school days at the end of the school year.
Right, so if anything were added, we have to take that into consideration.
Right, and then you also have fiscal year, end of the year. So for example, like this year, we end, absolute last day is the 23rd. God knows how hot it's going to be once we get into those later days because of the fiscal year and payments and everything.
Mrs. Calvin?
Yeah. Mr. Van Hanen brings up a good point and actually raised something that you just said that concerns me a little bit. Mr. Van Hanen said something about because of the Muslim holiday being impetuous. The reason for this, and one of the foregoing reasons Chairman Weldon suggested this committee, and you mentioned parameters. When I heard parameters, I heard roadblock. Because the Muslim community came to us. The parameters were the Board of Education approves the calendar and discusses it and exercises our discretion over the calendar. Now, if we add parameters, for instance, what parameters would we add? A certain percentage, a roadblock that the Muslim population did not have to come. They just had to appeal to us. And we looked at it and we used our best judgment and tasked the superintendent with finding the day. And we could look for days coming if people come before us again, but I think setting hard and fast parameters and rules, I see it as a defense of the institution against infiltration from minority groups who might want to get the day in the future.
I understand that concern. I think one thing that we have to be mindful of is that we don't know right now, but there's the possibility of an almost endless number of requests, if possible, that a particular group, it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious group, cultural group, or any civic group, considered a minority group or not, might request the recognition of a particular day off. And if parameters is a word that carries negative connotation, we could look at it more as guidelines for ourselves to follow. Nothing set in stone like a roadblock could be, but something to help us decide, because there are limited days. And as was just mentioned, there is a hard block at the end. In this case, June 23rd, partially due to weather considerations where it's too hot, but also the fiscal calendar. So there's not endless opportunities to add days. There may be opportunities, though, if it seemed correct, to change days. And that's part of the discussion I think we would have in this committee. is to look at the current calendar. When I say days, I don't only mean holiday days. I also mean vacation days. Nothing says we have to give the particular vacation days that we give. These are all on the table. And I repeat what I said at the beginning. The goal is not to bring suggestions of change to the board, to make changes necessarily. If that's what comes of it, so be it. But it's to have the discussion, to hear people's input, to talk about these things. Joe?
Yeah, and, just to respond to the hard and fast June date, we could possibly get around that coming in the future because the high school students, I think it starts next year that they'll be able to go remote once they, remote learning will count as a school day for high school students. I think it's next year or the year after.
This coming year, there are guidelines around remote learning.
And then they're working on K through 8, I think is the following year or something like that. They're trying to establish guidelines for that. So those hard and fast rules may be able to loosen up a little bit. If June 26th, it's 100 degrees and you could make a shift to remote learning at the end of the year. Most of the work's out the way anyway. And that could possibly free up some more days in the calendar if ever it becomes.
Yeah, I don't think the intention was to be, it would be for students that would require a remote experience for learning, not for districts to make unilateral decisions for the reasons that we're discussing. That, not right now. Maybe 5 years from now that could change. But right now the guidelines are to provide students who would require a remote learning, and it would not be asynchronous. That has been killed by legislation, so there couldn't be a live stream with kids present in the classroom and some kids at home.
Right.
Just also note, board member Sybil Allen joined the meeting.
Yeah, that's understood. But isn't there any plans to use it for like snow days or whatever have you at all?
Right now, no. That was made very clear on Friday morning.
I mean, not under the current guidelines, but under the guidelines that are being established.
No, that was made clear that the thought of remote in lieu of weather, snow days, right now, the legislation is not even taking that up.
Mr. Benahan, you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Lombard, thank you. Mr. Tristani, question, when you say about elections, when the school's open, who's the person, the city pays for the custodians and the security, or it's Board of Education, or it's the city?
It's a work day for non-certified staff. So
Okay.
it's regular work day, they get paid their regular salary. It's not overtime or anything like that.
Okay, thank you, sir. No more questions, Mr. Lombard, thank you. And thank you, Michael.
So now I'm actually going to just put out some feelers, because we have a couple of board members who chose to come to the committee today. Thank you, and the rest of the committee members, or 3 board members. This is our first meeting, but do you have any thoughts or insight or ideas or feelings around this topic that you'd like us to consider in future meetings?
Keep your hand from your face. I can't hear you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Macaron, do you have anything on this?
I think that the way this was only my first year, but the way the board has been putting together the holiday schedule and the vacation schedule has been reasonable, and I don't really have any reason to say that we should change things in different ways. I think what Mike, Mr. Testani said before about, if the mayor or if the governor or whoever says that we need to establish a certain holiday or a remembrance day, whatever it might be, we're going to have to do that. But I think basically what I'm looking at here there is quite a bit of time that our students have to be off of school, which it's great for the kids and it's great for the teachers, but it might not be so great for the students. However, I'm not going to argue that matter right now.
To your point, Mr. Macaron, one of the things we, with the swapping out the Veterans Day, if you notice, there's a lot of inconsistencies to the first semester, so to speak, of the calendar. And, with inconsistencies and, it's the reality. We do have a lot of students that are inconsistent with their daily attendance. It minimizes instructional time. I mean, I would like to, if the committee could look at where we can add school days in the first part of the year, that would minimize the inconsistencies because we assess students upon return at some point in the first month of school to try to get some baseline data. And then we try to assess them in the mid part of the year. But there's not a lot of days of consistent instruction. And we do have a very transient population. We have kids coming into the district at all points. And, we tried to push out SBAC testing, for example, this year, last year, the year before. The year before we got cut short. But we used to start at the beginning of the testing window, and we pushed it out farther to try to get more time for kids to learn before they're assessed. So, for example, we finished this year on June 3rd. In the past, we try to wrap it up as soon as possible. We want to just get it done. And it's not indicative maybe of the achievement of our kids. So to your point, I think we should be looking at this from a kid's lens and not necessarily always of an adult lens.
Right.
So you're saying the beginning of the year would
There are certain holidays, like we said when we discussed it last month, that were established 30 years ago. And there was a need, or because of the demographics possibly of our staff would be put a hindrance on being able to operate the district on the days those holidays fell. That may not necessarily be true 30, 40 years later. Maybe those days can be looked at. Maybe there's,
So not in regard to adding, so you're adding school days?
yes, earlier in the year, where then if other possibilities and demographics 10 years from now changed in the city, we could accommodate those folks but let's look at it holistically. It's schools, so we take for granted that there's just days off for certain things. The bank doesn't close for all these things. The grocery store doesn't. People work on certain holidays. Unfortunately, historically, we don't. And maybe that could be part of the shift. The country doesn't shut down on October 10th, for example. The country didn't shut down on Veterans Day. So maybe there's some, and I think
That is a city holiday and it is a non-certified holiday.
everything's negotiable. But
Okay.
my point is, I think it's important to, from an educator's perspective, those are days we can educate our children on the date of whatever we're celebrating. It's not happening otherwise. It's just a day off, sleep late, hang out with friends, play video games. There's very few parents that are sitting down prior on Veterans Day and asking questions and talking about why it's Veterans Day, the importance of it, the significance of it. Maybe parents that served, or had grandparents that served, but other than that, not really.
You know, Mr. Testani, I hear you and I understand it, and I'm not going to say you're wrong, but if we get our 181 days in, you know,
That's true.
That's the
That's the goal.
law. That's
Right,
the goal.
That's the law.
Now, of course, we'd like to, you know, do better than that, but it wouldn't, and I'm telling you, if we probably did something more than 181, we would hear it.
No, I don't want to do more. I'm just thinking the sooner we can get away from getting into those heated days where kids are struggling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. Susan.
Yeah, my
I see your
mistake, I'm
point
sorry.
now.
Okay, so
Okay.
end the school year a little earlier, a day earlier.
A few days earlier would be great, just so
Mhm.
that,
Yeah, and I also get,
One second. Ms. Castillo, did you hear the question I asked about any just general input, or any ideas or questions you may have about this topic?
I did hear the question, but I don't have anything at this time. I will say I agree with Mr. Macaron on the fact that, you know, I do think that these decisions have been made in the past in a very sort of sound way, or in a way that makes sense for our district. I do still feel that there's a need to have some parameters around the why, because that is really, you know, sort of what gave us challenges in the last conversation, is that there's certain things that we do, you know, to have met the needs of the community at one point or another, that may or may not be relevant to the population of students that we have in the district at the time, or families that we have in the district. And anyway, so I would venture to say that throughout the duration of this time that this committee will be meeting, that we should make a goal to come up with some sort of, and I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel with this. I think that there's probably other districts much like ours that have had to create similar, you know. So my intention will be to go and do some research, and I'll forward that to you when, you know, if I have something that I think is comparable to what we're dealing with here. That's one thing. The other is, I forget what the second one, there's two things that I was thinking about when I was in my car, and I forget the second one. When I remember it, I'll raise my hand, but to start.
Mr. Skolovic?
yeah, to Testani's point, I think he's also talking about continuity of learning, because you got, when you're doing something, say like algebra, you're doing the steps and what have you, it's best to build on a step the next day. For instance, he's talking on between September and October 20 something, there's, I lost the count, like 3 days off. The beginning, you got 4 days off, thank you.
because Labor Day, yes.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 4 days off within less than 30, no, about 30 days, 30 something days, and that breaking continuity may be harmful to the students. But that being said, it's also hard to go and tell somebody, no matter how small the population, that you're going to take away a holiday that they may be used to. So that's going to be tough. And I want to keep that in mind with taking it away and preventing somebody from getting it. Because if you're going to set a parameter of, say, 5% or something like that, and then you look at, hey, wait, 5% of who? 5% of students? And then you look at, no, I'm not trying to get attacked by the communities. We don't have a 5% Jewish population in our students, so why we have that day? But you are up and coming Hindu population, y'all hit only 4%. No, you can't have it yet because you're not 5. That's why I say very, very, very careful when you set parameters. I think the best parameter is the common sense of the board, like we used. Holy crap, there's a lot of Islam people here. They should get the holiday. We're not going to see that every time. We can use our best judgment. We were elected to use our best judgment. We did in the board, and I don't know, everybody sees that as problematic. Superintendent Stani said, I can find a day easy. it wasn't a big problem. It was only a problem because I don't know why it was a problem.
And when you look at,
Mr. Lombard?
I think Ms. Castillo brought up the fact that, for example, Hartford next school year, and it's interesting because they have a lot more half days for professional learning. It's something that we've talked about here. They have only one report card conference day, early release. Let's get it all done. They do have Three Kings Day. They do celebrate a lot of they still haven't added any Muslim holidays, but they also go 182. Then I just did just randomly a local school district, for example, Westport, who ends one day later than us, but also has a full week in February for February break. They still consider that. So, I mean,
So there's options.
and they have 182 days. So,
Mr. Benahan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lombard. Mr. Macaron, you have a very great point what you said, and I agree with you. Also, Mr. Desani, everybody have to understand that we are the board education of Bridgeport. We cannot let the state or federal make decisions for us what we're going to do with the calendars or any committee. Just because they help us with the need for our school, that doesn't mean we can do whatever they want. Because I heard you say because it's federal, because the state, if they decide make the decision, we have to understand first of all we have to communicate with the parents. If they change something, we have to let them know the parents in advance. So sometimes as a parent, and we know we are parents, we got family, we got things to do something in the holidays, and they change it or they change the date. We have to be careful how to deal with the characters because I don't want parents, students, the community get stressed, they get mad about the changes that we had planned. So us as a board member, we have to take care of them, not listen to this decision because that's not the way I've been doing actively working. I just want to say that for the record. Thank you, Mr. Lombard. See you soon, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have anything to add?
No, I wasn't here early enough
Okay.
to get the gist of what's really going on. I have some idea, but not really. Thank you.
All right. So, I mean, not for you to have to say anything, but just to kind of bring up a little bit, we just wanted to evaluate our current calendar,
Yes.
see if there was any possibility for improvement to help the students better and the community better. Possibilities for either changing current days off, or moving certain vacation days, or possibly maybe even adding days. One of the things that Mr. Sokolovic talked about was other groups that are smaller groups, minority groups, that may also have an uprising and upswelling of population that may want a day off as well down the road. So I think that
Would we be required to entertain religious days too as holidays for our school calendar since it's non-sectarian?
right, and actually, we don't have his full write-up on this from Attorney Dugas, who talked about what can and can't be used as a reason, because obviously it can't be because it's a religious day, but it had more to do with how it affected the workings of the school as far as attendance and everything else.
And the overall general legality of the holidays that come down or something?
I don't recall exactly on that.
I can't.
I don't recall exactly on that right there.
Okay.
But, so, Mr. Sokolovic, I wanted to bring up one final point before we wrap up. And I was saying, it was when you stepped out, about being open to possibilities of future communities that we might want to recognize. I don't know that it's, well, I don't believe it's the intention of this committee to be preemptive or I won't say proactive, but preemptive and think about which groups right now need days off, but I think more instead is talk about as groups come to us, things that we need to consider, including adjusting our current calendar to make accommodations if necessary. So definitely not to put roadblocks, but also not to just automatically recommend holidays either. So that was something I wanted to share.
Yeah, Like I said, I don't see it,
Microphone.
like I said, I don't see it as a very difficult haul to do that. I mean, it's 2 years out to plan. Because when they come to us, there's already an approved calendar, more than likely, or one being ready to approve, so we got at least an 18-month lead time on any holiday that comes to us in the future. So I think if any parameter, it can't be the same exact year or the next year, maybe 2 years out to give time for proper planning. But as far as any other hard and fast parameter to make it more difficult for us to make a decision we want to make as a board or any future board.
I
I mean,
agree.
because once you put something in there, well, we could always, anything we put in there is if there's enough buy-in from the board. For instance, if we had a parameter of 14% for the calendar, and in the past thing that was approved, and we saw all these people come up to us, we could always make a motion to ignore that rule and suspend it for that time and change it anyway, which would be an extra step. But
Yeah.
like I said, I think we got, as elected officials, we got the power to look at the calendar. Holidays are a thing on the calendar, and I think we already got all the tools we need in our basket. I mean, I can't foresee a board say, having somebody come up to us and want Festivus. And we
For the
say,
rest of us.
oh, Mike, Festivus is next week, get the kids off.
Got it. Well, I think this is the point of exactly of this conversation, is to have some type of framework when things, if and when things come forward, you know.
And I think that framework's pretty much there, because we set and approved the calendar,
Well, in advance.
yeah, a year and a few months in advance, and I think it's already there. I think we're reinventing the wheel for no good reason right now. But that's me personally.
Although already something has come up with a discussion about, you know, moving a day. So it's not just about holidays.
Right.
It's also about our calendar in general. So suggestions, discussion around that being worthwhile. So there could be more discussion down that. Anyone else? Anything? No? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You can't do it.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very civil conversations.
Yeah, yeah.